Hey you guys, so I am actually going to be doing a vermicomposting bin this year with my vegetable gardening. I added the worms to my worm beds, the red wiggler composting worms to my worm beds last year, and it did okay, but I think what I'd like to do is try to make my own fertilizer this year, and I've done a lot of research to figure out like how to do it and everything. So I thought I would document it for anybody who might be interested. I don't know. I think it's interesting, but maybe you guys don't, but that's okay, because I do. So, first things first, I got a 31-gallon bin, just like at Target, and then I did like a 1/4-inch drill bit, and I drilled in, air holes basically for the worms, because they do need air, they do need oxygen. So and then what I did, what's in here right now is some coconut coir, and that basically comes like dehydrated. I'll show you what it looks like. So you have to like rehydrate it, and it's a little bit of a process, but like I got this brick and I basically sawed it in half because I just didn't need the whole thing. So basically it was about this much that I used, and then put it in here and rehydrated it with a bunch of water, and then so it kind of makes like this bedding, and that's going to be some of the bedding for the worms, because they do need quite a bit of bedding. I think it's 4 parts carbon and 1 part nitrogen that you need for the worms. So this would be the carbon, and then I'm going to add some shredded newspaper to it for the rest of the bedding, and that'll be the rest of the carbon. And then we'll feed them some food scraps, and that will be their nitrogen. So I'm going to go ahead and add the newspaper, shredded newspaper. In there and then mix it around. Sorry, this is my first video, so I'm not really like probably that good at like knowing how to do the actual recording. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix that around, and I'll show you what it looks like in a little bit. So okay, I'm back, and this is what the bin looks like with the shredded newspaper added. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually add some more water. So I've got my handy dandy little water thingy. You want it kind of moist in there. They do need water, the worms do. But you don't want it too moist, because that can, one, it can actually drown the worms, because they don't have lungs, so they breathe through their skin. And so you obviously don't want to do that. But also, it can cause like a leachate to get at the bottom of the bin, where that's basically like gonna be like a watery substance of muck. Basically, it's all the it's kind of the fertilizer, but it's not, but it's like an anaerobic form, so it's not really that great, and so you don't want that. So basically, like, you want it to be like moist in there, so that they've got some water, but you still want them to be able to like breathe. And basically, like, it should be like, if you squeeze it, like you can't quite get like a drop out. So I'm gonna add just like a little bit more, because we just added the newspaper, so it dried it out a little bit more. So I'm gonna do that really quick, and we'll be back. Okay, so I think we got it at about the water content that you want. Like I said, I can just kind of barely squeeze out a drop, so that's about what you want. I got it good and mixed up. Okay, the next thing that we're gonna do is worms need a little bit of grit to digest their food, and so basically they don't have, I think it's like they don't have a gizzard or something like that. Anyway, they need some kind of like sandy something to go in with it. So we're gonna add about a cup of, I have a mixture of finely ground eggshells and what's known as green sand and azomite, which is basically rock dust. And I'm gonna add that to the bin and mix it in. So that's probably, I'll add a little bit more. That's probably good. And I'm gonna go ahead and mix that in. What green sand is basically is it comes from like a seabed floor. It's actually mined in New Jersey, which is kind of crazy because basically like New Jersey used to be underwater, and they found it in like Arkansas and Texas as well. But it's like a powdery substance full of like micronutrients and minerals, like trace minerals. And then azomite is actually mined in Utah, and it's essentially volcanic ash from an ancient volcano that landed on a seabed. And then it's also got all kinds of nutrients and everything in it too. So yeah, I wanted to, and then the eggshells of course have tons of calcium in them, so they basically act as like almost like a conditioner too. Like if you add any of those things to your soil, they really condition your soil and add lots of like trace nutrients to your soil. So I thought it would be, since the whole, losing my stuff over here, since the whole idea of fertilizer is you want lots of nutrients in it, I thought, why not? I'll make sure, since they need the grit anyway, I'll go ahead and use that as grit. And then what you want to do is when you feed them, you want to add just maybe, I'm going to feed them probably about once a week, and you want to just add like maybe like a couple of tablespoons or so on top of their food, and just let it sink into their food. So I'm going to put you down for just a second and wash my hands, and I'll be right back. I might also add a little bit of more water to the bin. So just a little bit. Okay, so I'm back. And I forgot to mention another thing about the grit that is kind of cool is that like when you use like calcium with the eggshells of any kind, or I think the azomite has quite a bit of calcium, it really encourages the worms to reproduce, which something that's really neat about worms is that they kind of self-populate. So according to how much like food there is and how good of an environment, how much room there is and everything else, like they'll like bring themselves up to population, or if everything is scarce, then they'll kind of depopulate themselves too, or they won't reproduce. So the calcium really encourages them to really reproduce. So we want that, because the more of them we have, the more worm poop essentially that we get. And I will show you the worms actually right here. I'm not quite ready for them yet, but they're gonna be coming out of this little bin here, or this little bag. Got them from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. I ordered from them last year, and they really do have really good worms. So yeah, so you want to encourage population, and as long as you keep, the bin really well maintained, they should be really happy in there. They can get quite a few in there and make you a lot of really good fertilizer. Basically, what they poop out is I guess gardeners call it black gold, and it really is. It's, your plants just really, really love it. So I know mine did last year. So anyway, so what I'm going to do before I put the worms in, I'm going to go ahead and put the food in. I've been collecting this for about the past week or so, and I'm going to try, like I said, try to feed them about once a week. It's my little compost bin. Ugh, gross. And I did a lot of like research on this, and with the bins, they really recommend feeding it on one side or the other. And so what I'm gonna do is, you know, feed on this, like if I feed on this side this time, and you want to dig a little bit of a hole here, so to put the food in, you want it about like 3 inches under the surface. The food is about right. So we'll cover it up here in a second, but you want to put it on alternating sides each time. That way, you know, the worms will kind of come migrate over to one side or the other. So here's my food scraps for them this time. And I've got a cornucopia of grossness. The worms love it, but you know, I think it's gross. We got some old cabbage here. I chopped up some cabbage for some of my salads this week. Cucumber. So this is the nitrogen part of it, and basically anything like I don't even remember. Oh, that's kiwi. That's an old rotten kiwi. This is some old basil that was going gross. Some banana peels, carrots. I've got some coffee grounds in there too, and actually that's good for grit as well. But anything like, you don't want to do any like meats or dairy or animal products, anything like that. You want like basically like any fruits or vegetables. You got to be careful with like tomatoes and onions, so maybe just sparsely on that, but like pretty much anything that comes from the garden, basically. You can also do eggshells, you can do just anything plant-based, essentially. So I'm also, what I'm going to do is so I've got that in there. I'm also going to add just a little bit of alfalfa meal, which is right there, because that is also plant-based, and it's great as like a fertilizer in and of itself. I actually do use this. I used it last year when I was gardening, and my plants absolutely loved it. But I'm just going to sprinkle a couple of tablespoons on top, just like that. And but my worms love it too. The worms loved it too, and it's just full of nutrients. And so, you know, it's one of those things, you are what you eat kind of thing. Plus the alfalfa meal really helps with speed up composting, because it creates heat. It's like, it has like a protein in it, so that's going to actually help with the composting process also, and help with decomposition. Also going to go ahead and put in just a couple of tablespoons of kelp meal, which again, this is just like super high in nutrients. So you know, I'm just trying to get this fertilizer as nutritious as possible, so the more of this we can add, the better. So it's definitely not going to hurt anything. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and add all of this now, and I'm going to cover it up. And what I'll do is I'll check it in about a week and see how it's doing. You know, see how much food there is left. I know some people do, and I have done this before with my worms in my worm bed, but they like to like kind of ground it all up, because basically they have like these really tiny mouths, the worms do. And so you know, it's easier if you can just like, the finer everything is, basically the easier it is for them to digest, and they'll go through it a lot faster. So I'm gonna kind of play with it a little bit and see how it goes. Like, I'm gonna do this week and do like these bigger scraps and see how that goes down, and maybe next week I'll go ahead and, you know, blend it all up in a blender and put it in that way, and see how quickly it goes that way. So okay, last thing is the worms. So I'm going to actually put some gloves on for this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so people think I'm crazy because I think that worms are so cute. I know that sounds crazy, but they're just like, they're so beneficial for, you know, gardens and soil, and they're just one of those creepy crawly things that actually do a lot of good for, you know, for things. And so I really like them because they're, you know, I don't know, they're very harmless. And so okay, so here's my worms, and I'm gonna go ahead and dump them in. I kind of built like a little bit of a trench here. Just kind of dug a little bit of a trench up, and I'm just gonna go ahead and dump them in. Okay, where are they? I got, by the way, this is 1,000 worms that I had gotten from their 1,000 composting worms. Okay, I may need to take the glove off because I'm having trouble with this. All right, hang on. I actually might need to put this down for a second. Okay, so here are my little wormies in the worm bin, and they're pretty feisty. They were trying to get out of the bag, actually. So, but yeah, they're very wiggly and squirmy. Like I said, these are red wiggler worms. They're actually pretty small, but they will get a little bit bigger and fatter the more we plump them up. They, I don't know, they're just amazing little creatures. They really are. They, like I said, they eat about their entire body weight in food every day, and everything that comes out is nutritious and wonderful for the earth. They've got like 5 hearts, which is pretty cool. My mom is out here now, by the way. Yeah, each worm has like 5 hearts. They are basically hermaphrodites. They've got male and female sex organs and are able to produce both sperm and eggs. And but they still, what's interesting is even though they still need another worm to reproduce. Yeah. So, but like I said, they do their own self-population. So anyway, they're wonderful little creatures, and we're going to take good care of them. But I'm going to cover them up because they don't like light. So we're going to go ahead and cover them up and let them be happy in there and go find the food on the other side. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the bin up with a layer of newspaper, which I don't know what happened to it. It must have blown away. I need to go find it, but I'm gonna find that and I'll be back. Okay, so I found the newspaper. It was hiding. It blew away. So I put just like a layer on top, and I'm just gonna wet it down so it doesn't go anywhere. But what this is gonna do is it's gonna keep the worms from wanting to get out. And I mean, hopefully they won't want to get out anyway. I mean, the only reason they would want to get out is if, you know, if there's like too much water, or you know, if they can't breathe or something like that, or if there's not enough food, you know, so if like conditions in there aren't good. But I'm gonna keep the conditions in there really good, so they shouldn't want to leave. But it's just kind of a little barrier from, you know, keeping them from wanting to escape, and just keeping them nice and dark in there and everything. So yeah, we're just gonna do that, and then I'll put on the lid. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna store this in my basement where you know, it's temperature controlled. Worms really like it between I think it's like, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like ideally like between 40 degrees and no like hotter than like 85 degrees. Kind of, I mean, they're like us. They like, you know, ideally they would like to be, you know, somewhere in the, you know, 70, 75 degree, you know, 60 degrees, somewhere in there. So, so we're going to keep it down there because it's nice and cool, but it's still temperature controlled. And, it'll take them about like 3 months to turn what we have in there right now, into good fertilizer, good vermicompost, or black gold, whatever you want to call it. So we're just going to keep feeding them and checking on them and adding water or bedding as needed. We'll continue to add bedding because you want to make sure that the nitrogen to carbon ratio stays pretty, you know, stays okay. I'm also probably, what I'm going to do, I was going to add just maybe a little bit more grit on top of the food that I added, and but otherwise they should be pretty good in there. You know, maybe just like a tablespoon or so, because I think they're okay. I think they probably do have enough grit. But yeah, so I'll probably do like another video once I'm ready to like harvest the compost, or, you know, just kind of keep things updated throughout. So it's kind of exciting, kind of fun. So I just thought I'd share this for anybody who's interested. And yeah, I'll talk to you later.